Buddha is one of the most important religious figures in human history. Buddhism has had an enormous impact in the world over a great many centuries, and it is still important today. In one way or another, Buddhism has affected nearly all other major religions and most philosophies. And as I am recording this video, the world seems to be on the edge of coming apart. We have the war with Ukraine and Russia, plus the war between Israel and Hamas, plus there is the new situation of active conflict between Israel and Iran, with missiles flying all over the place. And if that is not enough, it seems like many countries in the world are taking sides, and it's getting to the point where it is hard to know which side is which. It is becoming one of those who's on first situations. And adding to all of that, nearly no one on the planet is thinking about the subject of UFO disclosure as long as these conflicts are raging. And that is the point. Very few are realizing that it is easy for the group who we at Farsight call the bad ETs to manipulate national leadership in order to trigger such conflicts. And that is exactly what they are doing, and for exactly that purpose. In fact, one of the reasons we can probably say that Farsight has been having an effect on the disclosure situation is to see so many wars being triggered all at once. It is highly unlikely that so many major conflicts would happen all at once. Somebody wants it to happen as a big distraction, and the trick is to figure out who that somebody is. And as long as disclosure is the can that continues to be kicked down the road, the less likely that disclosure will happen. At least, that is the theory of how the bad ETs work. They are masters at running a prison planet like Earth, and to figure this type of thing out, you need to think smart. Real smart. But then, what are we to do about it at this time of trouble? Well, one of the things we can do is to look at something else that is unrelated to the world's troubles. Again, if the bad ETs want us humans to focus on the world's military conflicts, then the best response is not to focus on those military conflicts. Remember that this is essentially a zombie planet. The people in those nations and groups who are fighting don't remember who they are or where they came from. They don't remember that the very same people who they are fighting to death are in fact their own brothers, sisters, neighbors, family, and friends from wherever it was that they came from before they were thrown into the planetary prison on Earth. They simply do not remember. And that is one of the major reasons why this prison planet is maintained in a constant state of turmoil. Whenever everything is messed up like it is today, no one can pause to figure things out. So, let's look at something different. Let's not look at what the bad ETs want us to look at. Let's look at what we want to look at. And Buddha is a good example of something interesting to think about. During times of great turmoil on Earth, when wars are raging, when murder and atrocities and hunger and rioting and distrust and political polarization and everything else we see in the news each day are all happening at once, let's take a moment to see what some of our most enlightened leaders in the past have been like. What were they thinking? How did they view the world, life, existence? So, we at Farsight decided to take a look at the life of Siddhartha Gautama, or Buddha, and now it is time to show you what we perceived. I am Courtney Brown, Director of Farsight. At Farsight, we studied the perceptual process known as remote viewing. Remote viewing is a mental process that is done using highly structured methodologies that are derived from those developed by the United States military and used for espionage purposes. But Farsight is civilian, and we use remote viewing for scientific experiments and for exploration. This new project conducted at Farsight employs remote viewers who are among the most experienced and highly trained viewers existing today. The remote viewers all describe much the same thing, all corroborating reports, and it is worth emphasizing that the remote viewing was done totally blind, and none of the remote viewers communicated with one another about the project during the data collection phase. Even their final presentations were recorded on video with no one else in the room. This is not science fiction, told through riveting remote viewing conducted under defendable, clean scientific conditions. This is as real as it gets. And friends, I want you always to remember that Farsight is data-driven. Because we are data-driven, and we show you our raw data, that is evidence that we are not trying to manipulate you. But that is not what happens in the mainstream. Nearly everything you hear in the mainstream news is he said, she said stuff. People who call themselves reporters go out and interview other people who tell the reporters that they are telling them the truth. And then the reporters get in front of a camera and tell the world what they heard is the truth. But it is rarely the truth. This he said, she said reporting process leaves the mainstream media open to blatant manipulation. People tell reporters what they want the reporters to report. And bureaucracies, politicians, and just about everybody knows how to manipulate gossip-hungry reporters. Just watch, listen to, or read any mainstream news outlet. It is always the same. He said, she said stuff over and over again. Big exceptions to this are examples like the Pentagon Papers during the Vietnam War days or WikiLeaks more recently. Those had real and new data to report devoid of interpretation and manipulation. But those examples are exceptionally rare today, and the people who led those examples often found themselves in legal trouble, to say the least. Always, authorities frantically try to silence the public's access to any raw data that don't have an authorized interpretation blended in. And social media is vulnerable to this as well. The government routinely pressures social media outlets, including Facebook and YouTube, as well as the major search engines, to block, shadow ban, or manipulate what people can see. Why do you think there is currently such a big push to force TikTok to be sold to U.S. investors? Do you really think it is to prevent foreign interests from data mining the American public? Friends, that is not what is going on. It is not a question of preventing the data mining of the American public. Rather, it is simply a question of who is going to control the data mining of the American public. TikTok is one of the few social media outlets that is currently not easily controllable by the American government. And that is the point. Again, it is not whether someone is going to spy on you. Rather, it is simply a question of who is going to be able to control the information that you have access to. It is all about control. It is all about controlling you. So, what about Farsight? Again, we are data-driven. We never report he said, she said stuff. Also, we show you our raw data that is collected using a novel methodology that we have learned how to perfect. It took many years for us at Farsight to be able to do what we do, but we do it well. And through our many projects, we give you a window into reality that you cannot get from anywhere else. So let's get back to Buddha, or Siddhartha Gautama. To be honest, we really do not know much about Buddha from a historical perspective. He existed as a physical human being a very long time ago. It is said that Buddha was a wandering ascetic and religious teacher who lived in South Asia during the 6th or 5th century BCE, which means before the Common or Christian era. He founded Buddhism, of course, and it is said that he was born in the area of Asia now known as Nepal. It is also said that he renounced his royal heritage and lived as a wandering ascetic. But to be honest, no one currently living knows if this is true. It is said that he meditated a lot and that he attained enlightenment. Again, no one currently living knows what Buddha felt was enlightenment. It is also said that Buddha taught people to seek a middle ground between getting lost in the senses on one side and being a complete ascetic who renounced all bodily sensations and pleasures on the other. It is also said that he taught that physical reality is not the real deal. It is impermanent, and one should not get too hung up on the physical dramas of the world. It is all an illusion, albeit a very convincing illusion. Well, given what I just told you about how the mainstream media, social media, and earthly governments are trying to control you by controlling what you know and what you look at. This idea of saying that one should not get caught up in all of that is a useful reminder in this day and age. So, if we are to look elsewhere, we need something to focus on. As with all remote viewing projects done at Farsight, there is a target. The target serves as a focus of perception for our remote viewers. Now remember that our remote viewers always do their work totally blind. They are never told the targets, the nature of the project, or anything else while they are collecting the data for a project. Moreover, they do not communicate with one another about the project while they do their work, all the way through recording their data on video. It is only after all of their data are collected that they are told the target for the project. Now, for this project, the target is Buddha, or Siddhartha Gautama, while he lived as a physical human on Earth during 3 moments in his life. Now, the first is when he is experiencing his most enlightened moment, when he was living as a physical human on Earth. The second is when Buddha is experiencing his most deep and contemplative moment. And the third is his moment of physical death. And as you will now see, we saw a lot. This is arguably the first direct window into the real life of Buddha since the time when he lived on Earth. So let's take a look through that window to see what Buddha was like during his actual life. And after you see all of the sessions for this project, I will return to help pull things together.